it's weird to think that we are old, I guess, like in the old school contemporary sense, like we really thought our parents were old, but now we're like sitting in their shoes. Not like exactly,
Yeah.
because like
True.
I guess I was like 3 when my parents were my age. So like, it's still there's still like a ways to go, but it is weird that one day we're gonna be like super old. You know what I mean? But you never think about it because it like creeps up on you until we were watching like Russell Peters. I was like, wait a minute, we're old, bro.
Yeah.
Even he looked old. You're like, oh, okay, that's odd. But he's only like 50. What do you say, like 56 or something like that?
Yeah, 54, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, just wild. And like the topics, the lingo, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that was like our generation.
Yeah.
Like even the R word, when he dropped that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Like that was our time, But like now you can never say those things. It's weird because like even to like my younger cousins, I approach it as if they're my age too. So I'll like talk to them as if they're my age, but then they'll be like, oh, it's kind of weird, But I'm like, oh, right, you don't know what I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm just like a different point of reference now, because you grew up with like the iPads, you grew up with like inclusivity, all that stuff. So like you can't like they just don't get it. It's weird, like it was such a different mind frame when he was saying when we were kids and then like the racism was so high. But then they don't really understand the racism, like Murray's like, oh, the Indian kids now, like, what do you mean, like, Canadian accent? You're like, oh yeah, that's true, because you grew up with like other people like you, But I don't know if you distinctly remember this, but I distinctly remember being the only one of my kind in my school.
Yeah.
Or like a very, very like small minority. You're like, oh, that's interesting. There's not that many of us, and then I felt like because you're in that kind of school, your frame of reference is like, oh, there's not that many Filipino people, or there's not that many Asian people.
Yeah.
And then like now you're like, actually, there's tons of us. It's just in Canada there was not that many at the time.
Yeah.
It's really weird to think about when he's saying like Brampton was like very white before. It was just like Indians and Jamaicans, and then now it's all brown. You're just like, that's so true. And then when he said like Mississauga too, it's like all Filipino. Like it is all Filipino. That's where they all like congregate, which is weird. And you like. Yeah, even like where we grew up too, what I mean? Like Port Union, like it was like super white in the day. Back in the day.
Right.
But then now you're like, I was driving through and I was like, oh, there's so many minorities here. Well, I guess they're not minorities anymore,
Well, yeah, in a sense, there technically still are if you look at the percentages, but just because we're in the city and that's where most new people come, right? I think that the other thing that I liked when he said was like when he came back, it's now he understands the white plea because there's too many Indians.
dude, that's so true. When he was saying like that when he was growing up, he's like, why were they being so racist? But then now it's like, oh, there's just tons of Indian people. You're like, oh, that's why you're being racist, because you saw the immigration was pushing us out, and which is really interesting because like in my like professional role, it's all about, like increasing diversity. And I was confused because I'm like, it's hella diverse, bro. What are you talking about? But then when he was saying that one line about how it's like Toronto versus like the rest of Canada, like he was in Saskatoon or whatever. And like,
right.
I get it now. Cause like,
I remember those things. I remember people not liking Toronto or things like that.
But I didn't think about it. It's like, no, but like our frame of reference is different.
It's different. Yeah.
There's more they're not even really minorities, like global majorities. There's like more of the global majority in Toronto than there is in like other parts of the country. So like when I'm speaking to people about like inclusivity and like diversity, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I went to like Scarborough town. I was like, I didn't see a single white person there the whole time. So I'm confused, but then it's like, oh, it's because Toronto is like a hub and we're so different from the rest of Canada. But you never think of it like that, Like I went to...
you went to Halifax, right?
Halifax, I was about to say, Halifax, And like I went to Alberta too, and it's like... But even there, it's not as it's you know what it is? It's in those like smaller communities, like those cottage countries, like um you remember like how me and Tara would always drive to like Muskoka and stuff like that? That's where they are, bro. Like that is like I feel really uncomfortable. And we went to a farmer's market. I don't know where it was. It was in like in the middle of nowhere, right? This farmer's market. We've been like a few times. And the first time I went, I was like, Tara's like, oh, I really like this place. You know, it's like very scenic and like peaceful. And I was like, I feel uncomfortable. And then she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't see any other like colored people, which is correct. It's like, ooh, this is kind of weird, you know? And then we went back another time. And
I feel different. Like, I feel different about that.
Okay, yeah, explain.
Maybe because we grew up around a lot of white people and stuff. It's like I know white people. Like I feel more safer because I know everyone.
No, for sure. No, it's not safety. It's like
comfortability.
You're kind of sticking out. You know, it's like, oh, there's a, you know, it's like that. It's not like a, like it's like in a sea of white. It's like if we saw like at a like a Caribbean restaurant, you saw a Chinese dude, you'd be like, oh, okay,
right. You
know what I mean? You're like, it's like that. It's like, oh, interesting, but not like I don't feel like unsafe, but
I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't feel unsafe. Like, but if I go in like Markham area, there's a lot of Asian stuff.
Yeah.
You're gonna see majority like Chinese or whatever eating at those restaurants because they're pretty like local. No, like Chinese places.
Okay, yeah.
I feel when I go in and grab, I feel like I'm the only one that's different.
No, totally, exactly. But it's like, but we get it. It's minorities. Like, you know what I mean? It's like an unspoken understanding that we've all experienced.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you like you go in and you're like, okay, I'm in this like Chinese restaurant, and then you just like understand that it's cultural, whatever. But then you see like, I don't know, a white person. Like I went to P Mall during like I forgot what it was, but there was something which drew a lot of like Caucasian people to P Mall, and it was interesting to see them like, oh look, oh wow, look, oh, and you're like, interesting. Right. I think I talked about it on the podcast before, but it's like it was Brother Soon when that came out on Netflix, and then people wanted to go check out P Mall,
right.
And then it was like, this is weird because it's a different vibe. It's not like, oh, that's your culture. Like it's like, oh, I like Chinese food. I'm Indian. You know, like, I get it. You know, but it's more like it's like, look at these knickknacks that they got here. You know, it's like that. And you're like, oh, that's weird. You know,
it's judgy. It feels judgy. From that side. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at this guy was like trying to, I guess, bond or whatever, and I feel this from like that like group. Caucasians. I feel this from them. Like, so they were like, oh, you're Filipino? Oh, you got that balut, right? And balut's like, but you know, it's like the Filipino, you know, like that. For people who don't know, it's like a fermented, not fermented. It's like a almost born chicken, right? And like, I was like, dog, you could have said like anything else, but you chose balut because it's the most ridiculous thing that you'd be like, oh, crazy little half chicken thing, you know, and you're like, that's a little judgy, you know, but it's like you were trying to connect, but the connect was a weird vibe. Whereas a Chinese person would never say bullet. They're, you know, because we all agree it's kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? Like you wouldn't be like, hey, you're gonna bring your ethnic food, like you to me. You wouldn't be like, hey, you're gonna bring your ethnic food, bring some bullet, you know, and then be a little laugh about it. You wouldn't say that. You'd probably be like, bring some like you know, spring rolls, something I'll eat. You know what I mean? It's a different vibe. It's like not kind of judgy, but it's like that's interesting.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a subtle. It's kind of racism. A subtle racism.
It's kind of racist, bro. Okay, dude. Okay, that's so funny. You say that. All right, so we were watching Southern Charm, and this is the epitome of exactly what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'll even cut this one up, because me and Tara laughed about it so hard. So there was an episode, and she checked on Reddit to see if it was racist. Nobody said anything. So Southern Charm is basically it's one of my favorite reality TV shows. It's based in the South, and then it's about like rich people and not so rich people get along. So there's this one super rich lady, and she's like, come. She has like dinner parties. So she's like, come to my house for a dinner party. And like, oh, what's the theme? Indian themed. they're all white. They invited no Indian people. So they all show up in like saris and they're like, look at this roti. This is interesting. Like, ooh, the flavors are interesting.
Right.
And you're just like, dog, that's kind of racist, bro. And they're all like, they were like, the only thing that would have made it more ridiculously racist if they put on like Indian accents. That's the one thing that
sure. Yeah. Oh,
people came in with like and then they're like, how do I eat this? They're like this. They're like, how do I eat this? So you rip the bread and you dip it and you taste so many different flavors that you've never tried before. And you're like, that's kind of racist, bro. But they didn't see it as racist. They're all like, ha ha ha, yeah, whatever. You know, we're trying to be cultural, and I'm like, that's like me.
No, you know what?
You know what I'm saying?
No. Yeah, that just reminds me of. I think it's like you see it in a lot of different shows. Like whenever they have those, black tux or some party or something where it's like a theme.
Yeah.
We don't have themes in parties, right? In general, because we have enough of a culture that our foods, you know what I mean? All these different flavors and everything. Their food is very bland. So it's the only way to, their culture would be like trying something different, which is having weird dinner parties with a theme to it. Like, why you need a theme?
Exactly. Why you need a theme. But you know what we do? We just go to that restaurant, we just buy the food, and we're like, oh, it's new. Tastes good. You know? Like, me and Sunshine, we saw, like, a African restaurant. We're like, let's try that. I've never had African food. Boom. But we're not going to, like, yeah, man. Can I have... You know, you're like, why would you do that, bro? That's, crazy. There was this one time, this is the funniest story, but I don't know what it is. It's like a cultural... there's like a gap. I was going to say cultural incompetence, but I chose gap because it's like a nicer word. So a cultural gap, right? But we both know I meant incompetence. So it's like, or ignorance. So there was this one person who's like, I want to put a BLM post. They were white. And I was like, that's interesting. On their own personal social media, right? And I was like, that's interesting. And they're like, yeah, but I really want to get like a black person's input on this because I don't want to overstep. You think it's weird? They actually asked me, do you think it's weird if I ask a black person what they think about my BLM post? I'm like, okay, can I be real? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, if you think it's weird, probably weird. Just don't be weird. That's it. That's the difference between us and like them. Not trying to other them, but it's like there's something there that they're like, they just don't get. Or it's like, that's a little weird.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would never do that. I'd be like, yo, bro. I'm like Jared. I wouldn't be like, yo, Jared, I'm trying to support you, bro. I'm going to put this post up. What do you think? He'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, yeah, you're right. I would say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But they'd be like, what do you mean? I'm just trying to support. I want to be an ally. It's like, dog, I don't need an ally. That's another thing. When they're like allyship. Wow, I didn't think this was going to go in this direction, but it's Russell Peters who egged us on. It's like allyship, bro. And they're like, I want to be a good ally. You're like, I don't need an ally, bro. Like, I don't need your help. Like, just don't be weird. Maybe that's what it is. Just don't be weird.
Yeah.
And then,
that's what it is,
the Indian party in Southern Charm, weird. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Why are you gonna do that?